In this hack, we're going to make CMS-powered checkboxes that have dynamic names and IDs. So let's scroll down and look how this works. So we've got a form here, and with each one of these forms, we have these checkboxes that get their names, their labels, from CMS items. We'll look at that in a second. And what happens is that when we fill out this form and submit it, so let's just click Flow right here and submit it, our form submits. And when we jump into our backend and look at our form submissions, we can see here, this was submitted a few seconds ago, and we can see these are all of those different checkboxes, and we see those are all false, except for we've got Flow true. So if you come down here, you can use this code. You need to just copy it in. And the only thing you need to do is you need to paste it in and make sure the classes are the same as here. And you can change them from what they are here, or you can use the ones we've got here, and you will be ready to go. So let's jump into Designer and see how this is built. Okay, so if we scroll down here, we can see that what we've got is we've got a form, and then inside our form, we've got a collection list. And then when we open up our collection list, you can see that for each one of our collection items from our CMS collection, we have a checkbox field, and we've got the checkbox and then the label. And what's important to have here is we got to make sure that we have on our checkbox that we've got a class that we're going to use in our code. So here it's just hack54 space checkbox, but of course you can use any class that you want. And then you're going to see we have IDs here for checkbox. Okay, so let's take a look at our CMS collection here and see what this looks like. So you can see here, these things right here, we've got our name, attributes, Sweet.js. The one that we clicked on when we filled it out is Flow, and that's where our labels are coming from when we fill out the form, and that's what gets fed to our backend when we submit the form. Okay, cool. So let's jump into the code and walk through it and try to understand how this code actually works. Okay, so we're here before the closing body tag, inside our script tags, and we've just got a few lines of code. Very simple, and we'll just walk through this. Okay, so the first thing we do is we got our number sign, which means we're doing jQuery here. And what we're doing is we're grabbing something. What are we grabbing? Well, we're grabbing whatever thing has the .class hack54-checkbox. Okay, so that's what we already looked at right here. So that's right here. If we come into our class, we've got this, we're looking at that little square guy right here, our checkbox, and we have this class. Now, you may be looking at that and be like, wait. That's not the same. This is like hack54 space checkbox. And when we look into the code, what we have is hack-checkbox. Like, what's going on there? Well, what happens when you publish your Webflow site is that it gets, Webflow adds in those dash marks because you have to have those for class names. So it's just for convenience. That's one of the sort of transformations that Webflow does when you publish. Okay, so that's no big deal. So what we're doing is we're grabbing anything that has the class of this right here. Okay, so in our example, what has that? Well, remember, this is powered by this CMS collection. So right here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 items, or we could not be dumb and look there. And then we look down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got them all here. So we're grabbing 7 items by this jQuery getter thing right here. And we're running the .each function, which means we're going to loop through each one of these 7 checkboxes, and we're going to do something to them. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to run this function right here. And it's pretty simple. We just got 4 lines of code with some comments in here to kind of explain what's going on, so that's helpful. So for each one of these, we are going to do this thing. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, first, we're going to declare a variable, a constant. We're going to call this name. we're grabbing this, which is whatever this we're on. So the first time it will be this one. The second time it'll be this one. Next time it'll be this one. We're just sort of going through here, right? So the first time we're on this attributes one, let's remember that as we're like working through this example so we don't get kind of lost. So we're going through here, we're grabbing this, but we're wrapping it in a jQuery like getter thing so we can do jQuery stuff on it, just make it nice and convenient. And then we're running the .next, which is just like, hey, get the next thing. Okay, well, what's the next thing? Well, the next thing with a w-form-label. Now, this is one of those kind of tricky, but not tricky once you understand it, Webflow things. Because when you publish your Webflow site, a lot of the Webflow like components and even native stuff, Webflow to use like the functionality like forms and like interactions will add classes to them. But the nice thing is that Webflow does is they add this w- prefix before it. So whenever you're looking at stuff and trying to like debug stuff, like figure out what's wrong, and you're like, hey, what's this like thing? If it ever has a w- in front of it, you'd be like, oh, that's like a Webflow thing that they add when it's published. So I'm not going to see this in the designer. So you know what it is, even if you don't see it when you're designing. Okay. So you're saying the next thing with this class. Okay. So in our example, like what is this? So the next thing is this thing right here, this label that has that class on it. Now, of course, you can't see it here, but of course we can inspect this on our page to like make sure this is what it is. So let's just like refresh. So we get a new rendered form. Let's do Option Command or Option Control if you're on Windows. You open up the console here. Go over to console. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see a little bit better. And not our console, I'm sorry. And let's come down here. Let's click on that guy right there, and we click on this label. Let's go to R1, like our example. Boom, right there. And so you can see it right there, this w-form-label on our label element that's the next thing next to our checkbox. So this is what we're looking at here. Nothing. Here, we can see that Webflow added that. So that's what we're grabbing. All right, great. That's easy. And we're getting the text and we're trimming it. So this text function just means like, hey, grab the text out of there. Because when we're grabbing the thing, we're grabbing the whole label. So that would be this whole span element. But we don't care. I mean, there's all this junk in here, like this for attribute and the classes and the tag itself and all this other stuff we can't see. We're like, no, all we care about is this, the text, the attribute. So we're grabbing that text and we're calling .trim on it, which just sort of cleans it up. Hey, is there any like white space, like spaces after it? This is sort of like a convenience. So like if you go in your CMS and you add something like sloppily with like white space in the front or in the back or like a carriage return, like an enter or something like that, it's just gonna clean it up nicely. And we're adding it in. So what are we adding in? We are adding a clean text. So all this garbage just to say we're grabbing that word attributes and dumping it in here. So now we got attributes in this name. Cool. Once again, we're saying this attribute name. Now remember, an attribute is just like anything on a tag, right? So like that's an attribute. All these like dirty brown or like whatever color that is. This kind of these brown colors, the attributes. And so we're saying, let's take let's look at this back. We're gonna make a name attribute and we're gonna set it equal to this thing we just made. So attributes. Right? And so you can see it. So we can see what's happening like right here. So we grabbed that, and this, remember, is the checkbox. So we're talking about this. And we're saying, hey, to that checkbox, add an attribute called name and set it equal to this thing, which is our attributes. So what we're doing is this guy right here, that's what we're making in that line of code. Boom. So there, we've made it. Awesome. Okay, we're like halfway almost. Okay, then we're making a const. We're calling it ID. You can probably guess what that's going to be. We're setting it equal to name. That's this guy. So attributes, we are replacing all that Webflow stuff. Or I'm sorry. We're replacing all the spaces and non-alphanumeric characters with dashes, making it lowercase. This is basically cleaning it up to make sure it's a valid ID, right? Because in IDs, you can't have spaces, right? And so if you have spaces, we're changing them to like dashes, right? And we're making it all lowercase. Cool. Then we're adding an attribute to the checkbox again. ID equals ID, so the same thing. So we can look at this too. So ID, we've got attributes. Okay, cool. Then one other thing, we're making another attribute. Here we're doing it a data attribute. And so we're just calling this data-name. Of course, with data attributes in HTML5, you can do these whatever you want. And so we're just calling it name here, but you could be like data-clown, whatever, and we're setting it equal once again to ID. So let's look at that. Okay, so we've got data-name equals attributes once again. So there we go. I mean, that's pretty powerful, right? So you've got your CMS things and you're just dynamically adding things into the form, and then you can get them in the back end when the form is submitted. Pretty cool.
Thanks so much for checking out this hack. Please clone this project. We have the entire hacks project available for clone. If you get stuck with this implementation, no problem. We offer support for this hack. We're always releasing new hacks, so if you want to be updated, subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter. If you want to request a new hack, submit a super simple form, and all the links are in the description below.
That's effing sweet.